I've been waiting for this for a while. Microsoft, along with Qualcomm, have launched new Copilot Plus PCs, which in addition to a ton of AI features that Microsoft is touting and is like cool and all, there is one thing that's probably more exciting to most Windows users right now, and that's a new type of chipset.
This line of PCs are all running on the Snapdragon X Elite chipset, which, long story short, is supposed to finally bring Windows computers up to parity and even claiming to beat in some ways Apple's M3 chipset-enabled MacBook Air.
And so today we're going to test one of the aspects of this computer that is traditionally a big pain point for Windows computers, and that's the battery life.
And let's see if this Snapdragon X Elite chipset claimed battery life improvements are worth the hype.
But instead of just taking a camera and pointing it at the laptop and running a series of benchmarks, let's do something super casual. Let's just take the longest non-stop flight in the world that leaves from here in New York City and goes to Singapore. It's a 19-hour and 10-minute flight. Yeah, let's do that. So I'll do simple work on the laptop for as much of the flight as I can, and I'll even screenshot my battery usage as we go, so you know there's no funny business. And as per the usual on this channel, we'll explore while we test out this laptop, but in this case, we'll kind of explore the experience of what it is to take the longest flight in the world.
Parce que ma salade de longtemps, je comme ça fait besoin d'aide pour une pareille même.
Ouf. Here we go again, back on a plane. And even though I do have a very nice seat, which I'll show you in a sec, I would be lying if I said I wasn't at least a bit daunted by the fact that I'm stuck in this seat for the next 19 plus hours. But while we wait for things to get going, let's talk about this insane flight for a second. This is Singapore Airlines flight SQ23, and as mentioned, it is 19 hours and 10 minutes or so today from New York City to Singapore, and it covers about 9,537 miles. It's actually a new route that was started in 2022, and it beat out Singapore's own flight, which is now the second longest flight in the world, and that's the flight from Newark in New Jersey to Singapore, which covers 9,523 miles. Qantas, though, in 2026 is apparently launching a new flight that'll take that designation away from Singapore Airlines, going from London to Sydney, clocking in at 10,573 miles. Singapore Airlines flies this flight on a specialized ULR, or ultra-long-range version of the Airbus A350-900. The plane only has 2 fare classes on board. There are 67 business class pods and 94 premium economy seats.
Singapore Airlines decided that it would be wrong to put anything lower than premium economy on this long of a flight, which is probably the right move. Now, some background on this Snapdragon X Elite chipset if you're not familiar. Qualcomm and Microsoft are calling this the rebirth of the PC, and a big reason for that is this new architecture and design that the Snapdragon X Elite chipset is running on that apparently has some of the best performance out for a PC. Now with that, Qualcomm has shown data that their Orion CPU in this chipset has 51% faster CPU performance versus their competitors at the same power, and it matches their competitor peak performance at 65% less power. And they showed data not just exclusive to Windows. There's an apparent 2.6 times superior NPU performance per watt, with a 2 times superior NPU performance in general, 35% more memory bandwidth, 28% faster multi-threaded performance, and 19% better battery life playing back video versus the Apple M3. But even more impressively is the apparent efficiency. Now they showed 60% better battery life with video playback, 70% better with video calls, and 2 times better for video streaming against the Intel Core Ultra 7. And Microsoft even mentioned 20% more battery life than the MacBook Air M3 15-inch. And so with all of that, of course, we have very high hopes. And pretty quickly into the flight, dinner is served. So many utensils. According to Singapore Airlines, the meals on this flight are meant to not be too heavy as to encourage comfort on the plane. With that in mind, you get 3 courses, which also include some greens from Aero Farms, a vertical indoor hydroponic farm that Singapore Airlines partnered with in 2019 for, quote, farm-to-plane food.
A lot of garlic. Not a complaint, just an observation. Okay, dinner is done. It's about 1:30 in the morning New York time, but I think the move is to try to stay up just a little bit longer. so let's see if we can get a little bit of work done. Okay, worked for an hour in edge mostly, and we lost about 2%, bringing us down to 98%. Not a bad start, but I'm so tired, I've got to stop there, and I think it's time to get some sleep. And no matter how long we sleep for, there will still be a lot of time left in this flight. Coffee, check. And it is about 8 a.m. New York time. I slept for about 5 hours, that means, and we still have 9.5 hours remaining. Good morning. Time to get to work. Okay, so I worked for 2 more hours and we lost 16%, so we're now at 79% at this point, and the lights just came on, so I guess it's time for another meal service. At this point, you get another 3-course meal, with the truffle ravioli that I chose being particularly good. Pasta on a plane. Always the smart move. All right, though, time for more coffee. Back to work. Okay, now I've used the laptop and worked on it for basically 5 hours straight, and we're about to land. In that time, I lost 24%. We are now at 54%. But before we get off this plane, let's talk about this seat. The seat is super wide. I'm a skinny guy, but you could fit 2 of me if you needed to in it. To the left, we actually have so many buttons. First is the do not disturb, which turns on a light to let the attendants know not to bother you if you, say, are sleeping and don't want to be woken up for a meal or something. Then there's a call attendant and cancel that call buttons. We can also control the leg rest with these up and down. And we have 3 preset positions: upright, lounging, and melting into the chair. You can also turn the chair into a bed, as you saw when we went to sleep earlier, by pulling a lever and flipping the back of the chair down. Then we have an ambient light button for all the warm lights in the pod, and a spotlight from the ceiling that hits your tray table, which, by the way, you pop out of here and it's huge. Next to that, we have an on-off button for the monitor. That monitor is a huge screen, by the way, that's not touchscreen, weirdly enough, but you use this remote here that is a touchscreen to control it, and you can also use the D-pad on it to make selections. Also, it's a wired remote that you can pull like blinds, to get the cord to retract. Next, we have lots of cubbies. There's also a hidden mirror here, so you can make sure that you look as ridiculous as you expected after waking up on this long flight. And there's a universal outlet over your shoulder next to what I've decided is my laptop cubby. And we have some USB-A ports, one for charging and one for connecting to the screen, it seems, and even an HDMI port that allows you to use the screen as a second monitor as well. Also, big shame I forgot my iPod. Now the 1-2-1 configuration for the seats here means that if you get a pod in the middle, you both have aisle access, and there's a retractable divider in case, you came with the person that's sitting next to you. And even if you didn't, you can easily high-five them or something through this odd little gap here.
Thank you. Have a good one, guys.
Best immigration ever. It's like a sauna. Holy crap, what a journey. Made it to my hotel here in Singapore. It is 6:30 in the morning. I'm very thankful that they let me check in because I would have been sleeping on the floor in the lobby otherwise. I'm exhausted, I'm fried.
But I have to say, I'm impressed with this laptop and the new Snapdragon X Elite chipsets.
I used it as much as I could, besides sleeping and eating on that entire flight, and I ended up finishing with about 54%. So I used it for about 8 hours in total. That comes out to about 5.75% an hour. At that rate, over 17 hours of battery life. Now, obviously, it's very light work that I was doing. It wasn't like video editing or photo editing or anything like that, but this is the work that 80% of people using their laptop are doing most of the time. And also keep in mind that when companies make these battery life claims on their laptops, they're usually all using the same benchmark, we'll call it, where they're actually playing a video locally on the laptop itself. The internet is off, the brightness is super low, and that's how we get these up to 18 hours for the MacBook Air M3 according to Apple. 21 hours on the Samsung Galaxy Book 4 Edge 16-inch, another solid new Copilot Plus PC by the way, and up to 20 hours Microsoft gives this Surface Laptop 13 that I have here. But for a laptop to actually get 17 hours potentially of battery life of actually doing, actual work on the computer, kind of nuts. Now stay tuned for a proper review of the Microsoft Surface Laptop 7th edition that I was using in this video. I'll do that a bit later and post it to the channel. So subscribe and ding the bell if you want to get notified when that goes live. Also, if you want more info on the Snapdragon X Elite chipsets and how they work and why they're kind of a big deal, I'll leave a link below for you to check that out. Okay, I am going to shower and nap, as I now have 48 hours here in Singapore before I get back on that same flight and head home. Good night, or good morning. Who knows really at this point.